Another year, another Sixers second round exit. Am I right, guys? It's tough to be a fan of this team. It really is. And before I go in and tell the rest of you Sixers fans how you're all wrong about our team, I would like to say that I understand. Believe me, this loss hurt. Okay, it didn't hurt as much as the Hawks loss. It didn't hurt as much as the Raptors loss, but it still hurt. However, being realistic, the Sixers were not making it past the Eastern Conference Finals if we beat the Heat. We just weren't. Joel Embiid is a broken face and a broken hand, and as soon as we found that out, I immediately accepted that it just wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to be a good enough player to get us past there with all those injuries. But apparently, a lot of you did not. And I have seen so much crap this morning about how this team needs to just blow it up, how we should have kept Ben Simmons, getting James Harden was a mistake, how Brett Brown should have stayed the coach. He was a better coach than Doc Rivers, and Daryl Morey's been a terrible GM since he got here. And please, shut the heck up, you bunch of clowns. None of that is true, and as far as prospects for next season go, the Sixers have some of the best in the league. This team should be much better next season than they were this season, and it's not that hard to see if you just use your brain and stop being overdramatic for about 10 seconds. But in case you can't do that, I am going to sit here today and tell you all why the 76ers should be feeling pretty good going into the next season. Starting off, let's talk about a player I frickin' hope every single one of you can agree to be positive about, and that is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey just finished his second season in the league at the age of 21. And in that season, he gave you 18 points and 4 assists, and he gave you those points on 49, 43, 87 shooting splits. That is some really frickin' efficient scoring from a second-year guard. This dude is an absolute beast, and every single person who talks about him, what do they say? They say that he's a great locker room guy to be around, and they say that he is an incredibly hard worker. They had to lock him out of the gym during off days this season because he is always working on his game and trying to improve. Maybe it's a stretch to say that he will be an all-star next season, but I legitimately don't believe it will be out of the question to put him in that conversation. We can almost guarantee that Tyrese Maxey is going to make some big improvements this offseason to his already impressive game. There were moments where he was the Sixers' best player without Joel Embiid this year, and he's only going to keep getting better. Tyrese Maxey alone, even if nobody else on this team improves, everyone else stays the exact same, Tyrese Maxey's improvements alone will make this Sixers team significantly better than they were before. You can count on it. If anything in this video I will guarantee you to happen, it is that Tyrese Maxey is going to be a significantly better player next season than he just was this year. And that could legitimately mean another all-star to pair with Joel Embiid. But Tyrese Maxey is not the only talented young player on this team with room to improve. Shake Milton gave us flashes of what he could be when he was healthy. This kid was unfortunately hit over and over again with minor injuries throughout the season. He was not able to get any kind of consistent rhythm or playing time with the rest of the team. But when he was going, as he was in the final game of the playoffs, we have seen a guy who can be a great backup guard on this team, a legitimately good three-point shooter and ball handler, and someone who's not even that bad of a defender considering the fact that he is 6'5". I am pretty high on Shake Milton going forward, and he is not the only young player coming off the bench with more room to improve. Now, a lot of you may disagree with me here, but I have not given up on Furkan Korkmaz just yet, or Matisse Thybulle. Korkmaz was another guy who we saw flashes of him this season and what he could be. Flashes of a great three-point shooter off the bench with a little bit of ball handling, a little bit of playmaking, and not even that bad of defense for this Sixers team. However, he got injured, he came back, and once again, we've got a guy who just wasn't able to get it consistently down throughout the year. I am not nearly as confident in his improvements as I am in Shake's, but Korkmaz could be a decent bench piece next year. And Matisse Thybulle, I have no idea why you've all given up on Matisse Thybulle so fast. I really don't. We see players learn to shoot threes all the time these days. Literally hundreds of NBA players over the last decade have started off as non-3-point shooters, and after a few years or several years, they have developed a solid 3-point shot. I am not saying that this man is going to become the next Danny Green. However, when you have a guy who is a very, very good defensive player and is pretty young, I have no idea why everyone wants to dump Matisse Thybulle and is convinced that he is never going to be any better on offense than he is right now. Literally, all he needs to do is become an average catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. That is literally all we need from him, and I don't understand why some people consider that out of the question. I would say it is less likely that he will not develop a three-point shot than that he will develop one, because players, once again, left and right, guys come into the league who can't shoot, and they learn to shoot because there's a million shooting coaches, and unless your name is Ben Simmons, most players spend their offseason working on shooting above anything else. It's something that everyone in this league does these days, and I fully expect Matisse Thybulle to make some improvements as a shooter next season. Now, I don't know if he's even going to be an average one next season, but considering how he is already legitimately one of the best defenders in the entire NBA, why on earth are you all so desperate to throw him to the curb after his third season? Matisse Thybulle can absolutely improve his three-point shot over the next few years. Now, if we get to like 2025 and the dude is still a brick, he still hasn't improved, then yeah, it's time to give up on Matisse Thybulle. But for now, you've got an extremely cheap, incredibly good defensive player on your roster, and I don't know why on earth you would want to get rid of that. I really don't. So Matisse Thybulle, Shake Milton, even Furkan Korkmaz all have room to improve with this bench, and we have Georges Niang under contract next season. Now, look, Georges Niang was absolute garbage in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, he was horrible. But the dude had a cold streak. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. He also did have a knee injury. Throughout the regular season, Georges Niang was our most consistent bench player, and since he's making, I believe, like less than $2 million next season, he should be a pretty solid bench piece in the regular season. Once again, he's a great fit as a stretch four next to Joel Embiid. He spaces the floor for guys like James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. He's a solid bench player. This team's bench should not be too bad going forward as long as we sign a good backup center. Now, the backup center scares me. I don't know if we're going to sign a good backup center. I hope Paul Reed can develop into that guy, but we're not going to focus on that right now, okay? The backup center is a big question mark for this team, but considering we have Daryl Morey, who is still a phenomenal GM, he's not terrible, guys. I don't know why you think he is. I think there's reason to be hopeful for this team. Now, Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris are two guys who can stay pretty much exactly how they are. Joel Embiid just finished second in MVP voting for the second season in a row. He can do absolutely nothing but rest up and stay in shape this offseason, and he will be set. I will be completely happy with Joel Embiid. He is currently in his prime. He is in the discussion for the best player in the entire NBA when he is healthy. Joel Embiid does not need to make any big improvements. Tobias Harris, meanwhile, finally finally found his groove once we traded for James Harden. He finally has the perfect role on this team as kind of the third to fourth scoring option behind Embiid and Maxey in a similar place to James Harden. He is able to take over a quarter of the game, but he is not being consistently asked to be the number 2 guy on the team. His defense has greatly improved, his playmaking has gotten a bit better. He's a very solid rebounder on a team that's really struggled on the boards this season. I'm happy with Tobias Harris. Everyone wants to trade him. Guys, I've been saying this for like 3 years now. You're not going to trade Tobias Harris for equal value to his contract. And what he still brings, despite being overpaid, is very, very valuable to this team. We do not need to trade Tobias Harris. So that leaves James Harden. And look, I'm mad at James Harden too, guys. I understand. He played like absolute garbage in Game 6, specifically in the second half, where he took 2 shots and missed them both. He was terrible. But let's look throughout James Harden's career, okay? And I'm not talking about his playoff performances. I'm talking about his health and how he's taken care of his body. Before going to Brooklyn, when he was in Houston, James Harden was known as an Iron Man. This dude was always healthy, and he was always in excellent shape. Then he gets to the Brooklyn Nets, he hurts his hamstring, they rush him back from that hamstring injury, and he hurts it again, and then this past season, he once again hurt that same hamstring. The dude has been hit by injuries over and over and over again since getting to Brooklyn. So I do not hold it against him too much that he was not in shape and not feeling 100% as a Philadelphia 76ers. I am willing to give him at least one offseason. Can we give one of the best offensive players who has ever lived one offseason to see if he can get himself back into shape and become the player he once was? Can we give him that, please? Now look, if we come into the 2023 season and James Harden is still incredibly slow, he's still visibly out of shape, and he still is not looking nearly as good as he was when he was healthy in Brooklyn, then look, I will admit that the dude is just washed at this point, and, we shouldn't sign him to an extended contract going forward, because he's most likely going to take his 1-year extension this offseason, and then presumably get signed to a contract extension after the 2023 season. That is what it is looking like is going to happen. So, if James Harden comes in and he still sucks, then yeah, I'll admit I was wrong. But for now, I would like to give this man the benefit of the doubt, and let's see what he can do with a full offseason to rest, to get into shape, to heal up, and to get acclimated to the rest of this team. Because the man never even got a training camp with the rest of the team to play off of them. This team could have significantly better chemistry next season than they did this year. We added a whole lot of guys, or we lost a whole lot of guys and added James Harden. I want to see what this team looks like after a full offseason to work together. I really do. So I am not remotely ready to give up on the Sixers just yet. They have a whole lot of players who can make massive improvements, especially Tyrese Maxey and James Harden. This team could be much better than they just were next season, and while I cannot guarantee you the Sixers will win a title at any point, and especially not next year, I also think it would be idiotic to say that this is a team that needs to blow it all up and start over, because like it or not, they are going to be legitimate championship contenders next year if the team is healthy.